the time, cause I wanna freeze this moment, make it mine, hold you close, now my heart's wide open, when I'm with you suddenly I feel no pain, do you make it go away, do you make it close, now my heart's wide open, when I'm with you suddenly I feel no pain, do you make it go away, do you make it go away?
Opportunistic, still rubbing panels as they go together. It's folded the wing mirror in on Gerardo's car.
Misano is such a difficult circuit for these guys to get right. There's a lot of start-stop sections around the back. It's a very, very quick section as well.
It's a fantastic start from the 23. They're 4 wide there by the look of it.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening indeed, and welcome to another round of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. My name is Chaz Draycott. I'm delighted to be back on your screens once again, and well, it seems like a very, very quiet scenario at the moment. Listen. Barely any cars out on the circuit at the moment. We're here for the 9th round of the championship, a championship that has certainly kicked itself into gear even more than we were expecting. A quick look at the championship standings will tell you that it is a 2-horse race, very much so now, with Simon Povey taking the lead of the championship by just 12 points over Ed May after a very controversial, get your words out, Chaz, controversial race at the Hockenheimring, where we saw contact between our two championship protagonists, and Ed's drop score has come to his aid, really. They've got nearly 100 points between them over James Cummings and then Mark Baxter-Jones and Dan Bathy, but it's very, very close behind them, because if you look at Dominic Brennan, Brian Crawford, Gary Tall and Oliver Carwadine, they're separated by just 5 points, and then put Rob Sharp in the mix, and well, it's only 11 points. It's incredibly close throughout the rest of the field. Some drivers have taken the minus 20-point penalties to change their cars. Jared Coleman and Heinz Mayer not back on a sort of break-even level at the moment. In the team's championship, it's Tall and Taller Motorsport that are top of the pile. They currently have 396 points, with 351 points going the way of H Motorsport. Those two teams, again, Gary Tall and Ed May, the main representatives of the two. Sorry, Simon Povey and Ed May, the two main representatives of those. Then we have 11 Cents Racing Team A, DBTRS Racing, only a few points ahead of 11 Cents Racing Team B. And after last time, Team SRM jumped ahead of Petrol Tuga. There's been a bit of movement between them and Shark Esports over the last couple of meetings. So, let's have a look at some cars, shall we? It looks like we're going to get quite a small grid this evening, unfortunately. We only have 17 cars into the session. But still, it's going to be a good race, I reckon. This circuit always provides some very, very interesting racing. We have the 20-minute qualifying session coming up in just a few minutes. And then, of course, we will have an hour-long race with 2 pit stops for the drivers to think about. Here is Ed May, currently second in the championship at the moment. Ed looking to make up some ground back on Simon Povey, who is here in the session. He's actually just doing some laps at the moment. He's not had a clean lap on the board yet, so he's not really been represented. I'm just trying to just sort something out at my end once again. It wouldn't be one of Chaz's broadcasts if there wasn't something that I needed to sort out near the beginning, would there? Sorry about this, everyone. We look currently at Paul Goffin, who had a good run at the Hockenheimring last time out. And we stay in Germany for this round of the championship. And after this, we will move over into the beautiful lands of Italy, where the next round of the championship will take us to Imola. Then we go down to Monza. Or, well, we actually go up to Monza. Imola is in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy. Then Monza is more near Milan. And then we go over to Spain, to Catalonia, for the final round. Sorry, I'm still having to type something here. Apologies, everybody. One sec. Okay. Should be good now. Should be good. Andy Marston, the man himself, is back on our grids tonight. He was supposed to be racing in the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Series last week, and unfortunately he was not around for that one. He's got the headlights on the McLaren at the moment, though. It's not something we see too often, actually, from these cars, is they have the headlights on in the daytime. But Andy in this gorgeous, gorgeous sounding McLaren up through the Schumacher S's. That's a real place where the McLaren, I imagine, could be a bit of a pig because of the sort of pendulum-like effect of having the engine in the middle. Then again, the Porsche, as we see James Cummings go past, the Porsche 718 like this, I imagine, is even worse with the engine being right at the back. You're trying to throw it in and get the most out of it all the way around there. They're coming up now to the NGK chicane. A lot of the corners on this circuit are branded. You see them jump and hop and skip over the curbs. Cam Fife in the chat. Good to see you, mate. Hope you're well. This is apparently the Coca-Cola curve, the final corner. You've got the Horghaken, which is the hairpin at the start of the lap, which goes into the Mercedes arena. Then it's the Valvoline curve, Ford curve, Dunlop Kera, Schumacher S, Michelin curve, Vorsteiner curve, and Advan Bogen. They're all the corner names chronologically as you get around a lap. Let's see what this hairpin looks like in the Porsche. Doesn't seem that bad, actually, does it? It's a very, very tight corner indeed. You have to be very careful in the Mercedes arena. I hate this part of this circuit. I honestly love the Nurburgring GP layout, but I hate this bit. I really like what they do with the 24-hour race, where they just use the chicane that comes out there on the left-hand side. Actually, no, the chicane comes out a bit further back than that, sorry. And they basically just cut out that entire arena section. But obviously, in the 24-hour race, they go onto the full Nordschleife, and we're not exactly doing that this evening. I'm not evil enough to put all the drivers through that, as James Cummings has a bit of a moment, to say the least. And he's got Ed May going past him. Got John Roberts back out there tonight in the Ukrainian Air Force Digital camouflaged boosted motorsport Aston Martin Vantage. He's currently in 9th position. Now, you get points in this championship all the way down to 20th place. So, as long as everybody finishes the race tonight, then they are going to get points. Good to see Mark Johnson on the grid. He was one driver that we had down as not being available tonight. Johnny Elia, Jared Coleman, Andrew Shepard and Byron Crawford, unfortunately, will not be joining us this evening. But as for the other drivers that aren't here, unfortunately, they are not drivers that have made us aware in advance, which is a bit of a shame. You know, it's not the end of the world, but it's always nice to know ahead of time if we're not going to have people turn up. But that is the life of a league admin here on iRacing. You know, real life comes first, and we always appreciate that, no matter what. You know, there's no circumstance that would turn that around. Steve Kershaw pushing the Martini-branded little Cayman through its paces as he goes through Valvoline into Ford. And there are no BMWs today, as Fausto Pinto has very rightly pointed out. He's another driver we will not be seeing on the circuit, unfortunately. He had an issue with his wheel at the last round, and since then has not been able to source a replacement in time. But we hope to see you back on the track very, very soon, Fausto. Hope you're doing well as well. Now, here's the race to get off the pit lane first. This is John Roberts and Ed May. Ed May is usually the car that sort of leads the field around, to be honest with you, in these moments. We ride on the board the nose of the Aston Martin. You could hear it sort of slap the ground as he came out of the hairpin. Hairpin? I'm not that northern. I'm not as northern as Paul Smith. Hairpin, I should say, not hairpin. But John's going to be looking for some strong points tonight. He currently finds himself in 18th place in the championship. He has actually dropped the 20 points for changing car partway through the season. Everybody that you see driving an Aston Martin in this championship has done. So without that drop, John would be ahead of Stuart Clark, who is on 72 points right now, so that would put him 13th. John is currently 18th in the standings. Colin Wynn in the chat, good to see you, mate. Always a good supporter of myself and Sim Racing Magazine events, and Sim Racing Magazine in general. Good to see you, Colin. Here's Oliver Carwadine, one of two McLarens that we have out on track tonight. I love the 570S GT4. The 570 has always had to sort of grow on me. It's nowhere near as pretty as the 650S, which is its sort of bigger brother. It was basically a refaced MP412C. But honestly, the 570 is like a not-so-flowing and not-so-pretty version of the 650. And I still maintain that, but over time it's really grown on me as a race car. And I know a lot of you, if you know your McLarens, will have seen the McLaren Artura which is the new supercar they've made. Similar to the 570S in many ways, but they're actually bringing that to GT4 racing by the look of it. It looks similar, but prettier in just a couple of ways. It's more like a sort of bridging of the gap between the 570S that we see here and the 650S, of which there was a GT3 car as well. And I still maintain the 650S GT3 car is the prettiest GT3 car ever made. And if you have not seen one, I urge you to Google it now if you can and if you're in a position to do so. John Roberts has just had this problem. Going through the left-hander. Whoa, back end steps away. That's going in a wall. Oh, that's gone in a wall. Very hard indeed. Unfortunate for John. Here's Philip Hopley crossing the line, one of the privateers of the championship. Philip is father of Andy Hopley, one of 2 drivers in H Motorsport. And Philip's made his debut in the series really well, actually. He's done a good job of it so far. He's currently 33rd in the standings, but he has 7 championship points. And in a series like this, where it's a little bit more ruthless in that it doesn't give points to just anybody, you know, to score points is a good thing, and Philip's certainly done well at doing that so far. Here is the younger Hopley. Andrew pushing the Aston Martin to its limits. Doesn't look like him and Ed are working together at this point to slipstream one another. What they often do is they get times on the board early on, individually, and then they start to slipstream a little bit later. Look at the car wobbling its way around the hairpin. We've got Dominic Brennan back with us again tonight as well in his very distinctive red Cayman. We look forward to seeing whether Dominic can add another podium to his already impressive tally of them. Heinz Mayer, a driver that swapped to the Porsche last time out, has got Ralph Mayer right behind him. We've got the 2 fragile Crockery and board cars together. They are both very pretty machines, aren't they? Very, very pretty machines, these 2 liveries. He's got the sort of smashed Crockery idea with the Orris Digital logo underneath, and then Ralph Mayer's got this sort of beautiful honeycomb pattern on his car. Let's have a look at Ed May, because he's coming into the final few corners. He's got a couple of purple sectors in on this lap, so it's looking like it's going to be a good initial time for Ed May. And of course we all hope it is. We want to see this championship fight continue, and it's a 2:05.551 for Ed. He goes fastest, and his teammate is going to be next across the line. Andy Hopley does a 2:0. Well, not far off, actually. A 2:05.6. Right behind him. Oliver Carwadine next up. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong the wrong part of the timing screen there. Rob Sharp goes 3rd fastest in his privateer entry. This gorgeous, gorgeous livery. Philip Hopley across the line as well. Does he put a time on the board? He does. Tango's Malinois. Greetings from Denmark and the old man. Hope all are doing good. We're doing really well, thank you. A little bit short on numbers in terms of the amount of cars we've got tonight, but we are still looking forward to a good race here from the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Now, where is Gary Tall on his lap? Actually, Simon Povey is just coming across the line. Apologies, I missed Simon for just a moment there. He has done a 2 minutes... doesn't count. Okay. Interesting. So Simon must have had an incident point somewhere around that lap, because that was a quick lap from him. That was a flying lap. We've got cars off the road. Oliver Carwadine is off the circuit. Philip Hopley's also been off at the same time. Not sure if they've had some sort of incident together. This is Ollie. Oh, the car tries to step the rear end out, and then it's just going to go straight on. It's going to go piling down the hill. Ooh, it's a scary moment indeed, that is. Very scary. John Roberts is about to cross the line. He's about to put a time on the board in his Aston Martin. I think this is actually him completing his outlap and then getting on with a flyer. We'll see if it still registers a time for him anyway. Don't think it will do, will it? Oh, it does actually. 2:07.4 for John Roberts. Puts him 1.8 seconds off pole for now. But still up there in the top 6 in the Aston Martin. Ed May next up. He's 54 thousandths faster than his teammate at the moment. No purple sectors on this lap. Looks like a 2:05.6. 2:05.571, so 20 thousandths off his fastest time. Gary Tall has been off the road in the final moments of his lap, and he's had to bin that one. Rob Sharp's still 3rd at the moment. He's doing a good job here. But still 7/10 of a second difference between Andy Hopley and Ed May. And Tango asking in the YouTube chat, how many cars do you prefer to have in a race such as this? Our maximum grid size in the championship is 34. We had it as such because sort of 32 is usually the regular amount, but we sort of double booked a couple of drivers, admittedly, at the start of the season. So we extended that to 34. I think 30 is my sort of limit, really, before I think it starts to get a bit out of hand from a commentary and from a viewer's perspective, as Simon Povey does some purple sectors and goes half a second quicker into the 204s, 204.995. Lovely stuff from Simon, trying to get that extra championship point for pole position. Stephen Kershaw goes 7th fastest with a 207.140. He's just moved himself ahead of this man, Mark Johnson. But yeah, I tend to go for about 30 cars at a limit. In some leagues that I've run before, we've actually had a 16-car limit because we've been replicating old championships that didn't have really big grids. In the CDM Formula 1 World Championship, we have a maximum of 24 because, again, we are replicating an older series, and they had 24 cars back then. That's the sort of ideal grid size for me because you can keep your eye on all of it without losing any of the sort of quality of the broadcast. So we can always look all the way up and down the order at certain drivers without having to dive too far away from the race lead, essentially. Let's see what Ed May's going to do here on this lap. He's just going to come through the final corner now. Fausto saying, I bet Andy's going to win this race. Well, he needs one, to be fair. Andy's been really good all season, but he's just had the odd moment, the odd incident. He's on 68 championship points. Ed May improves, but it's not enough to beat Simon. Andy Hopley's in 15th in the championship on 68 points. Ed May has 283, just to put that into context. But the point system will be getting revised if we have a second season, because admittedly the increase in points from the bottom of the point scorers all the way to the top has been pretty savage, to be fair. You get 50 points for a race win, and then you get 10 less for second place. So that alone is too big a difference for me. It's the sort of point system that I like because I enjoy the fact that, you know, you can get a lot of points for winning and they don't get given out to just anybody, as I mentioned before. But at the same time, you know, you need to be realistic in the fact that point systems like that can spread out the field way too much. Simon Povey has come into the pits. Stuart Clark has been off the road in the number 996 car. Let's have a look what happened here. Oh, Ryan Penny loses it on the brakes and catches the back end of Stuart's car. Sometimes, Tango just saying in the chat that if wouldn't fewer cars make a better race? I agree in some cases, but it's nice to have a bigger grid with more going on because I've raced in championships and commentated on championships where we've only had like 9 or 10 cars before, and admittedly, if it spreads out, it's not very entertaining. You know, it's no real fault of the sort of series organisers or anything, but sometimes people just don't want to race in certain cars or certain championships. And admittedly, at the tail end of a season, you will see numbers drop because above everything else, if people feel they don't have a chance or they're just fighting for a couple of points further down the order and they're not really in it for much, then, you know, they can spend their evening doing something else, a bit of family time, just enjoying something else if they're not quite enjoying the sim racing, and that's fine. You know, we'll never stop people doing that, but it's nicer to have people that stick through a championship all the way, you know what I mean? Alex Neller saying, did someone say big grids? Well, yes, of course, mate. Alex, for anybody that doesn't know, is one of the admins of the World GT Championship here on iRacing, which is another league that I've been involved in for, 5 years now, since late 2017, since I made my first trailer for them. And Alex does a stand-up job of keeping everybody in line with the rest of the guys. And they have grids of, I think you've got 50 cars, have you not, this season, Alex? They're usually oversubscribed in terms of people entering, and you have to qualify to get into the championship sometimes. In previous seasons, we've done that anyway. It's absolutely awesome. It really is. Across the line goes Gary Toll. He goes 7th fastest with a 207.110, just a couple of thousandths ahead of Paul Goffin in the Porsche. It's not the busiest track at the moment, as you can imagine, but it's nicely spread out. Got a couple of cars coming around the final corner here, actually. Steve Kershaw is just ahead of, that is Ralph Mayer in the 990 machine. Across the line goes Steve, doesn't improve. Ralph doesn't improve either. And just behind them was James Cummings in the number 2. And it's 60 cars, Alex. Wow. Wow. And you're right, Tango. You know, there's a spin for Heinz Mayer. Tango is very right. You know, you only need a couple of cars to have a good race. And admittedly, some of those series that I mentioned where I've commentated on maybe 9 or 10 cars, there has been some insane racing going on between them. And it's great. But to be honest, yeah, it's not always the case, unfortunately. And thank you, Alex. Much appreciated. Thank you for your kind words. GT4 was something that we wanted to bring into its own racing because often GT4 is sort of shadowing GT3 cars and it's the sort of underappreciated class of the two because of how exciting GT3 machines are. It makes the GT4 cars look boring and slow. But GT4 is great. Really, really great category there. Still fancy GT cars that look great with big wings and splitters and make fantastic noises, but the drivers have long enough to react to things because they're not as quick and they're not as massively aero dependent. And they're quite a challenge to drive, actually, to get a lot of time out of them. It's not really the sort of grid size we'd normally have either. I mean, 18 cars is going to be our smallest grid by quite a long shot. Before that, our smallest grid was 24, which was also last time out at the Hockenheimring. But 3 occasions this season, we've had 31 of our 34 cars turn up. We still have a 34 car strong grid, but unfortunately a number of them this evening are occupied elsewhere. People are on holidays and so on now. It's getting to that sort of summer time, isn't it, where unfortunately series do die down. We do have 3 more rounds coming up though. On the 19th of July we have Imola coming our way. Next up on the 2nd of August we'll be going to Monza, and then on the 16th of August the championship comes to its conclusion at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. In the Spanish sunshine, we'll be going under lights as well by the end of the race, which will be great to see. We're in the sort of late afternoon setting here as well. We'll show you the weather on the right hand side, and I've not really fixed that graphic yet. 27 degree track temperature though is not bad at all, and it will get cooler and cooler as the sessions continue. And the sun should just be setting by the time that we finish this evening's racing. But on other occasions through the championship, we've been properly under lights by the time it's all finished. And there will be a few more races this season where we get that sort of treatment. So 5.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. Simon Povey is currently the fastest. 2:04.995 for him. Andy Hopley in second place, 3/10 off him at the moment. Ed May in third position, hoping that his teammate can help. Then there's half a second gap back to James Cummings. Another 3/10, nearly 4/10 back to Gary Tall, but he's moved up to 5th. Then we have Rob Sharp and Dominic Brennan quite close together. Another half a second or so back to Stuart Clark. And then it's very close between Paul Goffin, Stephen Kershaw, Oliver Carwadine and Mark Johnson. Look at that. The 4 of them separated by less than 1/10 of a second. Then there's less than 1/10 back to John Roberts. And then it spreads out a little bit more towards the bottom of the order. And I'm glad it sort of inspired you to look at getting a sim, to be fair, Tango. To be honest with you, my rig is a GT Omega rig. And it does the job. You know, I run a Thrustmaster TX wheelbase on that. And I'd say it does the job. It can be a bit of a money pit if you do start looking at rigs. I'm picking up a new one next week, actually. A week today, in fact. I'm picking up a new rig, which I'm really excited to show you all. I've been very truly spoilt with a rig I've been sort of provided by one of my partners. As a brand, that is. And, yeah, to be honest with you, you can get some really good aluminium profile rigs, and they're the ones I'd probably go for if you have the money, but if not, I'd always recommend a GT Omega. It's easy to set up, easy to build, and it's sturdy enough to run most wheels, to be honest with you, even some direct drive wheels as well. So, not long to go. James Cummings here is currently in 4th place. James has had a hell of an under-the-radar season, you know. He's been really, really impressive. The first round didn't go his way. I think he took tyres or something in his second stop, and he finished 14th. But from then on, he's finished really, really well, actually. We had him finishing 5th at Sebring. He then got a podium at Daytona. He was 6th at Silverstone. He dropped down to 9th near the end of the race at Zandvoort. Back up to 6th position at Zolder. a 5th place at Spa, and then he got his best result of the season last time out at Hockenheim. And he finished in P2 in car number 2, and, well, he's got all giddy with excitement and pulled over there. Now, Simon Povey is sitting in the pits, so I'm pretty sure that's his session done with. We look now at his teammate Gary Toll in the Aston Martin Vantage, roaring its way up the hill towards the NGK chicane. I love how it's spelt as well on the track map. It's S-C-H-I-K-N, sorry, K-A-N-E, proper chicane. Not like this sort of more French-sounding spelling of it. It's C-H-I-C. It's full-on German spelling, and I love it. The commentary boxes for the Nurburgring are just over to the left of where Gary is right now. They're pretty much right opposite the start-finish line. I was lucky enough in 2020 to commentate on the real-life Nurburgring 24 hours from the circuit. I was absolutely over the moon. It was my first ever European gig in the real world. And that's a hell of a way to start your career, let me tell you that. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Spoilt rotten I've been so far. And funnily enough, this Friday will actually be 2 years to the day since I started real world commentary, since I made my debut. I started in 2020 on the 8th of July. And I commentated on Sports 2000 Championships at Snetterton that weekend. It was the first time I'd done real world commentary properly anyway. I did do a race or two for the Junior Saloon Car Championship in 2018 at Alton Park, but I was just there shadowing another commentator effectively. And what I consider as my proper debut, where it was my own gig, was there at Snetterton. So nearly 2 years I've been doing this now. It's quite mad, isn't it, really? It's progressed very, very quickly. And I know that I do this annoying thing where I announce the fact I'm going to announce something on Facebook, and a lot of my friends have made it very, very clear that that's really annoying. So thank you. But I have some very big news coming up for you soon of a gig that I've managed to, well, I say I secured it, but no, I've not. The wonderful people at Loudspeaker Agency have landed me a very, very impressive gig, and I'm really excited about it. So you will find out more once I'm back from the Hungaroring, where I'm going this weekend for Clio Cup Europe. Looking forward to that. There's a couple of us English commentators going out there as well. My friend Chris McCarthy will be doing Formula Regional, and then my two friends Adam Weller and George Morgan will be covering the Euro Formula Open and the GT Open as well. GT Open International, I think it is. Adam Christodoulou is racing in that championship as well. He's always a good lad to catch up with, and I hope to see him over the weekend. Anyway, session's about to be finished right now. Gary Toll crosses the line once more. He improves in Sector 2, but does not improve overall, unfortunately. Next up to cross the line will be Heinz Meyer, and he's got a couple of corners left to complete on this lap. Philip Hopley did just cross the line as well, but no improvement for him there. So we've got the 222 Porsche making a hell of a racket up to the chicane. And if you get a chance to see GT4 racing in person this season, keep your eye out and keep your ears out for these Porsche Caymans, because I don't know what Porsche have done to the most recent iteration of it, but it is the loudest GT4 car money can buy by a long shot. As, whoa, Heinz Meyer has a big old slide out the final corner. His brother Ralph just behind him there. They're looking to line up 15th and 16th on the grid at the moment as things stand. They do not improve on their times. Mark Johnson has come into the pits. Ed May has done 3 personal best sectors on this lap so far, and he's continuing to push into the last couple of corners. He's using every inch of the circuit. Can he get close to Simon Povey's time? There's no purple sectors on the board, but he's pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Ed May crosses the line, and he improves, but he stays third fastest behind his teammate. Dominic Brennan has crept up to 5th place, but he's just pulled over at the side of the road. Paul Goffin is on a fast lap as well, actually. Andy Hopley doing a great job there in 2nd place, splitting the 2 championship protagonists, but of course he is teammate to one of them as whoa. Paul Goffin takes plenty of the curb, and I think that's the end of his lap, actually. I think he's called it there. Yeah, that's not a full chat final corner, unfortunately, from Paul. And Philip Hopley, I believe, has also completed his session. He might practice his pit entry here. No, he's... Oh, yep, here it is. He does continue and pull into the pits, and that will end the session here at the Nurburgring, which means Simon Povey takes another pole position. That is his 6th pole position of the season. He had 3 in a row at Zandvoort, Zolder and Spa earlier in the season. He qualified 3rd at Hockenheim last time out. And I know he'll be looking to try and take a lights to flag victory. So the bottom left of the shot there with the sort of box-like buildings and the white tall pillars, that's where the commentary boxes are here at the Nurburgring. You don't see a massive amount, to be honest with you, but a lot of the time you tend to get a big screen in front of your face so you can see just about everything around the track. And now a bit of silence falls over the circuit for just a moment while the drivers get prepared to have the usual rolling start that we have here. And it's not going to be a very long lap either. They should start in just the final couple of corners before they get going. And we have an hour-long race. 2 pit stops usually the norm here. The cars are limited to 40% fuel in their tanks, so they cannot cover the whole race distance, and they cannot cover it on just 1 pit stop either. So let's see what's what then, shall we? On to the grid they go, and we'll run you through said grid. Simon Povey takes pole position once more this season. Andrew Hopley will line up alongside him with his teammate Ed May in 3rd position. James Cummings will be looking to spoil the party from 4th ahead of Dominic Brennan and Gary Tull. Then it's Rob Sharp and Stuart Clark on row 4. Mark Johnson and Paul Goffin round out your top 10, just ahead of Stephen Kershaw and Oliver Carwadine. John Roberts is 13th with Philip Hopley behind him. Then it's Ralph Mayer and Heinz Mayer, making it an all South African row 8. And then on the back row of the grid we have Ryan Penny and the boss man, Andrew Marston. And there you see the grid forming up in the background. 9 rows for this evening, so a nice even number for us to follow. And Simon Povey is the Aston Martin at the front that will lead them all the way. There is his championship rival Ed May right behind with the Rebel Alliance Snowspeeder helmet on, which you have to love. And listen to the beautiful noise the Aston Martin makes. Hats off as well to James Cummings. He is the highest placed Porsche on the grid. It's all Astons and Porsches till we get down to Oliver Carwadine in the McLaren. And now everybody will shimmy around in their necessary positions. Gary Tull's looking good in 6th place as well. He's definitely one to keep an eye on in the early stages. So inside the top 6, we have 2 privateers, 2 H Motorsport Aston Martins and 2 Tall and Taller Motorsport Aston Martins as well. So round the final corner we will go. Simon Povey has the mercy of the field at the mercy of his right foot. And round 9 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge is underway, and it's a very, very clever start by Simon Povey. They're pretty much single file already, except for Dominic Brennan and Gary Tull, who are right there as well. Mark Johnson side by side with Stuart Clark in the middle of the pack as well. We'll go on board with Mark and just see how this all pans out then. What's it looking like at the front? Side by side between the 2 H Motorsports teammates, although James Cummings went down the inside of one of them, didn't make it through. That's Ed May holding station. There's been a bit of a check-up in the middle of the pack. Rob Sharp has slowed down on the right-hand side there. John Roberts trying to go down the inside of him, gives him a bit of a braille pass down the inside, but I don't think Rob knew he was there the whole time. But that was a really tidy start by Simon Povey. Now he needs to try and break away here from Andy Hopley and Ed May right behind him. James Cummings coming under pressure from Dominic Brennan in the Porsche. Then Gary Tull just behind him. This is the look back from James Cummings' car. You can see the whole train trying to follow him through. Apologies, it wasn't Rob Sharp that we saw going a little bit close to John Roberts earlier. It was Steve Kershaw. Apologies, they both run 2 chrome sort of metallic cars. John's got Philip Hopley just in front of him right now in the blue Porsche. As they go round the hairpin at the bottom of the hill, the Dunlop carer. And then hard on the power up through the Michael Schumacher S's. It's going to be interesting to see how the different cars handle up here. Seems like the Porsche's got a little bit of oversteer to it. The Aston Martin looked quite understeery there for John. Maybe he's just being careful on the tyres in these early stages. Stephen Kershaw had a bit of a poor start, actually. He's lost 3 places since the lights went out. And Ralph Mayer lost 2 spots as well, actually, to Ryan Penny and Heinz Mayer. They've swapped round completely. Simon Povey then, end of the first lap, or nearly end of the first lap, goes through the very slow Grand Prix chicane. I was evil enough to make them do this one rather than the fast sweeping Blancpain Endurance Series and World Endurance Championship chicane. James Cummings definitely under pressure from Dominic Brennan, and right behind them is Gary Tall, this man that we ride on board with right now. He does not want to let the guys ahead get away. He wants to chase after them as best he can throughout this entire race. But the thing is, he can't start making early moves because he doesn't want to battle too hard and open that gap up as a consequence. You can hear the short shifting, can't you? Definite short shifting through there. Looked for a second like Andy Hopley was getting very close to the back of Simon Povey. I really need to edit these cameras. I've done it on a few cars, but there's no way that you'd have a camera swinging out this far, is there? It's a bit of a shame, to be honest. Love the Aston Martin, though. It sounds fantastic. It looks great in the H Motorsport liveries as well. Andy has teamed up with Ed to bring him on board for this one. The two of them were driving McLarens at the start of the season. Ed did drive the McLaren until round 3, same with Andy. But for the first round, they weren't teamed up, and then for the second round, when they were, and then they both changed cars at the same time. It became a real team effort. John Roberts has got ahead of Philip Hopley. Now Stephen Kershaw looking to do the same. Throws it down the inside into the Dunlop carer. Philip Hopley tries to get his nose back down the inside, but Stephen Kershaw makes it work. That was a lovely move. Let's have a look exactly how he did that. He really throws it in late on the brakes. It was a big lunge. Good awareness by Hopley not to jump in. And look, he just gets it stopped enough so that you can't get a car back down the inside. I like that. Strong stuff by Stephen Kershaw. Very well done. He finds himself 13th, as I think Philip Hopley's just had a bit of a moment behind him there, ran a bit wide. I'm realising that some of the frames that we're getting here, it's a little bit stuttery, isn't it? I apologise for that. I'm not quite sure 100% what is causing that. But hopefully it sorts itself out in the long run. There's just the odd few stutters here and there. We're not losing the frames technically, but I do see a little bit of stuttering, so apologies for that, everybody. Ed made us the fastest lap of the race with a 2:05.55, although Simon Povey did a 2:05.14, but I don't think it counted because he must have got an off-track somewhere. The two H Motorsport Aston Martins, as you see, they're sort of opposite colours. So Ed's car is pink on the left, and Andy's car is pink on the right. Ed obviously with the pink wheels, Andy with the big beefy black wheels on the car. Looks fantastic with black wheels as the Aston Martin. Jakub Szymanski in the chat earlier said that he thinks GT4 cars look fat. And to be honest, I kind of agree. You know, they look heavy, don't they? They look like heavy GT cars despite being quite small in size, usually. Their sort of aerodynamic packages are nowhere near the size and width of GT3 machines. But they do have this sort of weird effect of looking heavy on their feet. This is James Cummings, and that right there behind us is Dominic Brennan, and he is starting to put the pressure on now. The little red Cayman is right up behind. 0.2 of a second between the pair of them as they go up through the Schumacher S's. Over the curb as well. Bit of dancing around going on. And hard onto the brakes into the left-hander. Already 5 minutes of this race done. And we are currently on lap number 3. You can see Gary Tall is still waiting there just behind this. As I think there's a slowdown penalty there for James Cummings. And he has lifted off the throttle, and through goes Gary Tall, and through goes Dominic Brennan. That is gutting for James Cummings. I'm not really sure where he would have got that, to be honest with you. There's a move further back as well as John Roberts displaces Paul Goffin. Does Paul outbrake him? No, he does not. John Roberts goes through up into 11th place. He's not far off breaking into the top 10 now. He's got 2 seconds ahead of him, though, to this man, Oliver Carwadine. Here's the next car for him to try and set his sights on. There's a bit more battling going on here between the 3 Porsches at the back of the pack. This is Ryan Penny in between Heinz Mayer and Ralph Mayer. He's in a Crockery Direct and Orris Digital sandwich. Ryan a few weeks ago was absolutely on fire at the Nurburgring. He put in an amazing performance considering he had COVID. He made up the most places in the race, and he's made up a place there, but sort of by mistake as he throws it up the inside of Heinz Meyer. Wow, that was a good old move. I don't think he meant it, but let's have a look from here. If we look with Ralph Meyer, so he looks to the inside. I think he put Ryan off because Ryan had to get out of it on the brakes. And then as we re-emerge, you see he's still got the place. Fantastic stuff by Ryan Penny. Let's have another look back at that. So he must have been watching what the car behind was doing, because look, he realises there he's not making the corner. Keeps it on the brakes, tucks it in. Good awareness as well by Heinz Meyer not to just drive into the back of him. I've seen many a moment like that happen. And the car that's trying to get the cutback just sort of drives into the back of the car in front, which isn't always kosher. Up the hill then, this is the 2H Motorsport cars right together now. Andy Hopley in second place. He's not really got any sort of advantage over Ed May. And that has really dropped away. The gap to Simon Povey in front is now 1.7 seconds, and it's only 0.3 back to Ed. I'm wondering whether we're going to see Ed either make a move or be let through here. They obviously want to try and work together to use the slipstream where they can. So make sure that Ed is dragged up to the back of Simon's car. Look how tough the chicane is as Ed really takes a lot of curb through there. Flings the car up in the air. It makes some horrible noises. It sounds like a car where you've just got to be patient, doesn't it? Hard on the throttle now, down the start-finish straight we go. And look at that in the background as well. Gary Tall under pressure once more from James Cummings, who had to give that position up. And he wants it back now. He doesn't want to let him get away with that. And Ed May has got past Andy Hopley. As soon as we look away from it, I think Andy... Well, he sort of let it happen. Down into turn one. Ed puts his nose down the inside. And that's that. Nice and tidy. Doesn't really cost them too much time. Although I say that, Simon Povey is now 2.5 seconds up the road from these two. He's having another phenomenal performance so far, as Steve Kershaw is closing in on Paul Goffin quite considerably as well. These two close together just outside of the top 10. Stephen Kershaw in 13th place, not 14th place. Paul Goffin in 12th. John Roberts has started to edge away from them a bit, but the gap from him to Oliver Carwadine has stayed about the same. Back down towards the Dunlop Carer, an iconic piece of racing circuit. You can see the humongous crowds around the edge of it there in these big grandstands. Grandstands that usually have lots of international flags all on them in that whole sort of curve. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, especially when the grandstands are empty, actually. Looks awesome. Now, Gary Tall finds himself stuck in the middle with you right now, because he's got Dominic Brennan right in front, James Cummings right behind. I'll let you pass judgment on who's the clown and who's the joker. For record, I don't think either of them are. They're both very, very quick drivers, and so too is Gary. But he is in what looks like a much bigger car with the Aston Martin. It's considerably wider than the Porsche. You'll see from this shot here. The Porsche looks like a skinny little thing, doesn't it? In comparison to the big sort of flattened Aston Martin Vantage. But in turn with that, it looks like more of a tank, doesn't it? It looks heavy. The Porsche looks a little bit more nimble and sprightly. It looks cheeky. And they cross the line again. And get themselves down into turn one. Hard on the brakes. It's such a difficult corner to judge, is that hairpin. Because you're braking downhill and trying to turn slightly as well, just to get the car hooked in a little bit. And the hard on the brakes through what I think is the miserable Mercedes arena. Don't get me wrong, it demands a lot from a driver and it can be really difficult and sometimes really exciting for racing, but it doesn't tickle the pickle, I find. As well, that's certainly not a pickle being tickled, as Paul Goffin is Paul Offin. And he's now waiting for teammate Andy Marston to come around. I think Andy's lost a bit of time as this race has gone on, but yeah, Paul will not be too chuffed with that one. Oh, there was contact. I was going to say, it didn't look like there was from the first angle that we saw. And okay. So Stephen Kershaw has waited for him. That's really nice. Stephen did wait for him. We'll show you this once again. But we'll show you Stephen Kershaw and we'll stay with him. So he turns in. He gets to the apex, but there's just that little biff in the rear end. And then look, he pulls over and he waits. I was initially watching just Paul and I didn't notice this. So sorry, Stephen. But you can see he waits for him the whole time. It's really top sportsmanship, this. And we've had a lot of this season, you know. There's been a lot of times when there's been contact and drivers will wait for the people that they've fouled. And they will make a point of giving the place back. It's really nice to see. And that's when, you know, you've got a good league and a good bunch of drivers amongst you, you know. It's great. Really great to see. Now, this is a battle that suddenly just swung one way then the other in the few seconds that we saw it. Gary Toll was right on the back of Dominic Brennan. Just overdid it slightly into the chicane once, and James Cummings is now on the attack. That's how quickly it can change in motor racing. Even more so in sim racing. But look, they're trying desperately to get the slipstream off one another. And Dominic Brennan is just able to stay in front. James Cummings really closes in behind Gary Toll on the brakes. But again, it's not enough. Just show you how the field has spread out a little bit. The sort of middle of the field has got these little duets and trios going on at the moment. But other than that, it's spread out at either end, as naturally it does in motorsport. You know, it's the usual sort of spread you can expect. Ryan Penny's got the two Mayers right behind him. Hines leading Ralph. Ryan, again, is the biggest mover in the field so far in this race. Not as many cars to overtake today, but he's gained 4 spots. Hopefully, for his sake, that doesn't become 3, as the two Mayers get very friendly on the exit. And Ralph puts one down the inside of Hines. The two Porsches side by side with the front row seat on the car ahead. These are 3 fantastic liveries as well. It looked like Ralph had done it a little bit, overdone it then, I should say. But no, he gets ahead of Heinz Mayer. And now they've run back down towards the Dunlop Care. Nearly a quarter of the way through the race. Just about to hit 14 minutes as of right now. Pit stops usually come about the sort of 20 to 25 minute mark. And then again between sort of 40 minutes and 50 minutes. We often see drivers make it to about 53 minutes before they make a final stop. They have a bit of a splash and dash at the end of the race. But right now there's some really good battles going on all the way through the order. And we hope that they continue to the very end of this race. It is a circuit that's quite difficult to overtake on. But I'd say everybody's done a good job so far where they have made the moves. And the battles they've been having have been really good. Great to see the sportsmanship being displayed as well by some of these guys. And this now is James Cummings looking down the inside of Gary Toll into the hairpin. He's got alongside him. Gary tries to pinch the apex to make sure James compromises his run on the exit. Moves over to the middle of the road to try and cover it off. Now watch James try and get the cutback here. It's not the easiest camera angle to tell whether somebody's alongside. He's got his nose sort of down the inside. Gary's gone deep. He was probably wanting to give the space anyway, but now he's back on the inside for the right-hander. James just leaves him enough room on the inside. That's a lovely move by James Cummings, I have to say. It was obviously helped a lot by the small mistake by Gary Toll, just going in a little bit too hot to the left-hander, but fantastic driving by James Cummings to get that one done. And this has really helped Dominic Brennan because he's now got 2.3 seconds over the pair of them. And he can start to run to the hills. Now we are over a quarter race distance. Up the road from him by about 3 seconds, nearly 4 seconds now. The two H Motorsport Astons still working together to try and keep the pace up. You've got to think that Andy right now has sort of conceded himself to be the second driver. And he's doing a good job, isn't he, at the moment, of helping his teammate and doing what he can for him. Look at the speed that they get down here as well. It's very impressive as they make their way in towards the chicane. And then back up to the final corner. Look how much curb Ed is using on the left-hand side there. It's quite interesting to see that that works, you know, because oddly, the car sort of bounces down off the curb very, very hard. And you would have thought that would unsettle it coming into the final corner. But it seems to work for Ed. And he gets the job done where it matters. You can see certain sectors, can't you, in certain corners where Ed maybe starts to break away a little bit or show signs of it. Whoa, bit of a slight miscommunication there between the two of them as they get into the final corner. Well, the final corner of the Mercedes-Benz Arena anyway, I should say, sorry. Simon Povey still leading this race though. He's going through the long downhill right-hander now, which is the Ford curver. All the way down to Dunlop. And it's looking very, very tidy so far for Simon. If we look at his lap times that he's done, you can see his best is a 2:05.059. He was half a second off that last time round, but still half a second is not too shabby whatsoever. When it comes to a 2-minute lap time as well, you've got to consider the length of the lap. That is not bad at all, is it? There's been a change round as well. Ralph Mayer spins off the road. He went ahead of Hines for just a moment. We'll have a look at what happened here. So this is Ralph. Oh, he just clips the grass on the way into the corner. He's off. He's on again, and then just loops it as one of the wheels just grabs the tarmac. And then he's going to do a long spin to get the car off the track and get it around. Oh, that's not going to do the suspension any good. Nearly clips the wall as well. He's got back going again, but he has unfortunately lost quite a bit of time. Andy Marston is at the back of the pack at the moment, 7 seconds off Ralph, but Andy is still out there to get some championship points, and that is the main thing. He's still not completely... Well, I was going to... the phrase is under the weather. I was going to say above the weather, but he's still out there and he's pushing on, which is good to see. Now, are we going to see more pushing on from these two? Are we going to see a fight between the two H Motorsport teammates? Well, Andy Hopley isn't sticking to any sort of script there as he goes past Ed May. Ed now starts to put a bit more pressure back on his teammate. This is good fun to watch already. And this may go on for a lot more in this race. Shows you there's no sort of team orders between these pair. Either that or it was an order to put Andy back in front for just a moment. And as they head now into the long sweeping left-hander at Valvoline, you have to be so careful and manage the weight transfer of the car so gently from the left to the right, just to make sure that you get it pinched in to the apex. And Ed has sort of lost a bit of time to Andy already. The gap's going up to about half a second. As oh no, John Roberts has been off the road. John Roberts has had a spin. I think he might have done the same as what we saw Ralph Mayer do. Stuart Clark's been off the road just before this as well. I think Stuart's just going to run wide on the exit in the Mercedes Arena. He does. And then we'll find out what happened to John Roberts. Yep, he has done exactly the same as what Hines did, but look at that. Backwards entry into the left-hander. Gets on the throttle, gets the car off the circuit as quickly as he can, and he has rejoined with a bit of a gap around him. That's not what Ryan Penny's got, though. He's got only half a second back to Heinz Mayer, just behind. Fellow Porsche driver, as Ed May has gone ahead of Andy Hopley, and there's been contact between the teammates. No! Dominic Brennan comes through. Wow, the two of them were off the road and had gone straight on at the chicane. Oh, Ed will be gutted with himself for that. Andy Hopley rejoins as well. They've both lost ground through that as well. Ed tries to stay out of the way of Gary Tall. Now Gary's side by side with him. Ed is letting Andy back through. I think Andy's making it clear that he doesn't want to go past. Either that or he's making it clear that he's annoyed at him. As Ed now moves all the way over. That's going to be devastating for Ed. We've got Rob Sharp behind him. Look, Rob's still in this race. He's not been on our screens that much, to be honest with you, but now he's all of a sudden in this fight of 4 cars being very close to one another. Andy Hopley all over the back of Gary Toll, throws it up the inside, makes the apex. Gary tries to cut him off on the exit. Look at this side by side. That's a beautiful move by Hopley. We've seen a few cars be able to do that, and that is great, great stuff. I think Gary Toll will be a little bit more wise to that one now. That's the second time that's happened to him. Let's have a look what happened to Ed May and Andy Hopley then. So they're coming up to the chicane. They both brake hard, and Ed's just gone really late on the brakes. He's only just clipped the back of his teammate, and the two of them, well, Ed waits for him, and Andy just gets a whack in the back. That's a real shame, that is. It's an easy mistake to make. And now Ed's got a bit more of a fight on his hands to come back through the order. With Gary Toll in front of him as well, you can bet that Gary is going to do his very best to help his teammate in the championship to keep as many points over these guys as an advantage as possible. Simon Povey is now nearly 11 seconds clear at the front from Dominic Brennan, who's made his way up from 5th into 2nd. James Cummings is just there again. He's just there. James is just fantastic this season. Holding on to a podium spot right now, with just over a third of the race completed. And there's some of these guys in these Porsches have just been absolutely outstanding all season. Really consistent performances. And they continue on and on. Out the final corner goes this group once more then. We've got Andy Hopley from Gary Toll, Ed May, and then Rob Sharp just behind. The closest two together are actually Rob Sharp and Ed May. Rob's right behind him, able to get in some of the slipstream at least. Big pop and bang on the way down as well. The revs really dropping down there. You can see the sort of rev dial in the bottom right on that little dashboard graphic down there. Making their way all the way up the revs, and then what sounds like the revs really dropping down is actually still over half of the car's sort of capable RPM. You can see it there, 6,000, 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8, nearly 8,000 RPM anyway. They get to about 7,700 RPM in these machines. And yes, indeed, we have Roseths? Is it Roseths? Apologies if I'm saying that wrong. But yeah, saying in the YouTube chat that he's hoping to see Philip Hopley inside the top 10. You never know. All it'll take is for something to happen to some of these drivers ahead, and he can definitely break up there into said top 10. Oliver Carwadine is 12.5 seconds up the road from him down at the hairpin, so he's not in striking distance of any of them at the moment, but you never know what can happen. Like I say, it can change very, very quickly. And this man, Gary Toll, is hoping that it doesn't change quickly because he's got Ed May right behind him. He's held up on the apex. And it looks like Ed's got a good run out of the right-hander as well. That's the Vorsteiner curve. Down through the Advan Bogen. And Ed is on the inside for the chicane. He's going to try and outbrake Gary. The lighting just changed slightly, went a lot more orange. Ed takes plenty of curb. And across he goes, and Simon Povey is the first car to pit. Now that is a surprise. That is a surprise. Usually Simon stays out very late and calculates the fuel really well and has a bit of a late stop. James Cummings has stayed on, so he's going to cross the line and have the race lead for a moment. There are no points in the championship for leading a lap. I think that just overcomplicates things massively. But James Cummings goes through and has the race lead. So Simon Povey in the pits then. So too is Dominic Brennan, Rob Sharp, Mark Johnson and Oliver Carwadine. Apparently 0 off tracks so far for Dominic Brennan in his Porsche. He's doing a fantastic job. And Simon Povey gets going. Straight out of the pit lane at full chat. He's got a car coming down the straight. That's Philip Hopley, who's going to be next to him, but I don't think he's going to go for the move. No, Simon gets it tucked in at the apex nicely. So biggest mover is still Ryan Penny. Car 99 has gained 9 spots so far. Obviously, some of them are assisted because of the pit stops. He's ahead of Dominic Brennan, Rob Sharp and Mark Johnson because of that. As Mark has got very friendly with Rob Sharp on the pit exit, actually, by the look of it. The two of them have lost a bit of time somewhere. for a bit of shenanigans as they come back out. That is the TF Sport liveried car of Mark Johnson. That was a little bit naughty by Rob Sharp. We saw earlier that he moves all the way over to the left while braking for that sort of hairpin. And he's done it there just across the nose of Mark Johnson. It wasn't too dangerous, to be fair, but still, you have to be so careful when doing stuff like that because you can get yourself into quite the mess. James Cummings isn't in a mess, though. He's leading this race so far, after the pit stops have taken others further down the pack. And he's going to be enjoying himself out there at the front for now. Finished second at Hockenheim last time out. He's going to be hoping for a similar amount of points from this one. So, with it being a long lap here, I don't think we're going to see much variation in terms of pit stop time. So James Cummings comes in, so too does Andy Hopley, and so too does Ed May. Ed running wide on the entrance to the hairpin, nearly does a Coulthard. It is literally a hairpin when you come into the pits there, but there is a fast repair available for these guys, so they will use it in the pits. Here's Stuart Clark on his way in. Simon Povey will now be the next car to cross the line, and he will regain that race lead. I'll show you everybody's pit stops on the left when I sort the graphic out properly. There goes Simon Povey, past everybody else. We've got all the other cars coming in. I think Ralph Mayer is the only one left to show us whether he's going to the pits, and he is. Moves over to the right-hand side, so he will be the final car to complete the stops. Now, Dominic Brennan has gone through and is in second place. He has got ahead. Actually, sorry, no, he's not, because he was already ahead of Andy Hopley and Ed May. I got too excited then about that, so apologies. Andy Hopley comes out fourth, Ed May fifth. Now, where is Gary Tall in all this? Gary Tall was a couple of seconds slower in the pits than the guys around him. Mark Johnson was stationary for about 19 seconds, so Mark has gained a lot of time in the pits, actually. He's done a great job. 19.05 seconds. Everybody else was over 23 seconds and 24. Gary Tall was stationary for 26 seconds. That's where he's lost these 2 places to the guys in front. Ryan Penny is still the biggest mover. After the pit stops have equalised everything, he's still gained 4 places in this race in his Porsche. Dominic Brennan has gained 3 so far. So he's going to be hoping that he can maybe outdo Ryan in that respect. I've realised as well the car volume is still very low. I'm going to try and crank it up a little bit for you all so we get a bit more car noise out of all of this. Because we don't want it to be too quiet, do we? You don't want to hear me too much, do you? I'd do your head in. We go on board with the Aston Martin. There you go, that's a bit more beefy, isn't it? Proper sound on board with the Aston. Up towards the hairpin we go. The hairpin? The chicane. God, you can tell I'm not really concentrating on what I'm looking at. Sorry, everyone. Just trying to make sure audio and everything is correct. But whoa, over the curb goes Mark Johnson. And again, just scraping the floor of the car along that curb. It's almost like a Tony Hawk style grind, isn't it? Into the final hairpin, and Rob Sharp, well, he's booted it off up the road actually out of that final corner there. Here's this continued battle further down between Heinz Mayer and Ryan Penny. Heinz looks to the inside, wants to try and outbrake him. He is later on the brakes. There's nearly contact between the two. Still great close stuff from the pair of them. Oh, and listen to that. He has to get out of it there because he's just a little bit too high up the revs into the final corner. And across the line they go once again. Into turn 1 then. Tries to go as late on the brakes as he dares, doesn't he? Let's try and get it tucked in and chase down Ryan Penny once more, but nothing doing at the moment. Runs a little bit wide as well through turn 2 in the Mercedes-Benz arena. Now Rob Sharp is still only 0.4 of a second ahead of Mark Johnson here, so it's very close between these guys. as they make their way back up the hill through the Schumacher S. We've got over half race distance now in the books. And you can see Mark wants to still put the pressure on, even from half a second back. He's still moving around to sort of say, I'm still here, I'm not going anywhere. And he needs to be careful as well, because behind him we've got Gary Tall trying to make progress. We've got this battle still going on between Heinz Mayer and Ryan Penny, and Steve Kershaw is getting involved in this one as well right now. There was just a move at the hairpin where we saw Heinz Mayer get through. Well, we didn't see it, but we're going to now. Heinz gets the run, goes for the outside of the hairpin. Later on the brakes, Kershaw's got a great view of this, and look at that, Ryan Penny's a little bit hot on the brakes there, gets it tucked in nicely, gives him the space back. That's really respectful racing, good stuff from both of those guys. Lovely move from Heinz Mayer, great respect from Ryan Penny, but he's had him back. I think Heinz has had a slowdown penalty, and Steve Kershaw's gone through as well. Oh, all the hard work undone for Heinz Mayer. Absolutely gutting stuff. He's going to have to do it once more. The time's coming down here. Mark Johnson has got past Rob Sharp, but then lost it again as they go left through the Mercedes-Benz arena. They're so close to making contact. Right behind them as well, Stuart Clark is trying to get in on this. Rob Sharp can't get to his precise apex that he normally does. Drew Fletcher in the chat, good to see you, mate. Hope you're well. Rob Sharp stays in front. Gary Tall wants a piece of this now. He's thinking, surely there's a position in this for me somewhere, boys. Surely. We'll have to wait and see what he can do, but we've seen Gary before has been very patient in moving forward. He waits for strong opportunities. And he takes them in the blink of an eye. Again, look, he's just filling the mirrors like Mark was doing before to Rob Sharp. He's just filling Mark's mirrors now. He's making it very clear that he wants to come through. He's dropped a couple of places from where he started. Obviously, he had a longer pit stop. That might mean a shorter second stop, though, for Gary Tall. He could even do a longer second stint, you know, and stay out for a few more laps than everybody else. It could all work in his favour. But what they don't want to do is lose Rob Sharp by battling here. And Ryan Penny has unfortunately been off the road. He's lost a few places here. Down at the hairpin. Oh, there's a bit of contact with Stephen Kershaw. And Ryan gets turned around. So there was a bit of a move going on here. That's not really the camera I wanted to go for. Oh, that's a tough one to call, that. I mean, it was good avoidance as well by the guys behind. But if we go back to chopper cam, you can see Ryan in the white car. He does get to the apex. There is a car's width down the inside, but it's not quite at the right point of the hairpin for the two of them to get through cleanly. And unfortunately, there is contact, which puts Ryan off the road. We've also had Philip Hopley go off track for just a couple of seconds. I think he's just run wide out of the exit. Oh, no. No, that's going to go in a wall. Actually, does an amazing job to keep it out of the barrier. Really good stuff by Philip. You love to see it. Good awareness. And very well done to him. So 25 minutes of the race left to go now at the Nurburgring. This is round 9 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. A quick shout out to our wonderful partners as well. Orris Digital, Shark eBikes, Digital Motor Arts. I always get that wrong. We have Mydas Simulation on board as well. Of course, Sim Racing Magazine themselves. And Crockery Direct. We appreciate each and every one of our wonderful partners. Oh, and Blinds to Go. Let's not forget Blinds to Go. Sorry, Byron. Byron Crawford of Blinds to Go. He's an absolute star. It's a shame Byron's not here tonight, actually. He's a really quick driver, and he's been doing pretty well in the championship. Just having a quick look at the standings. Byron's actually 8th in the championship for 11/10 Racing Team B. The team between them at the moment have 202 points. Back to this. Rob Sharp, just ahead of Mark Johnson. Just ahead of Gary Tall. Stephen Kershaw has just been off the road and he's just come back on. Seems like he's not lost too much time from it though, so fortunately I think he's got away with it. And this trio is intriguing, to say the least. I'm just going to wait and see how long Gary Tall wants to wait behind these guys here, because it's clear that he's ready to pounce. But it's just going to be a question of when. When and how. I think that's one of the main things. Rob Sharp is doing a good job to just have enough pace in the car to stay ahead at the moment. As they go back through the long, sweeping left-hander at Valvoline curve into Ford. You can see they all bunch up more and more every single time they get into a braking zone, and then all of a sudden one of them will try to make a move and then they'll spread out again. Is Mark Johnson close enough to do anything? I'd say so, but he hasn't tried doing anything yet. That's the thing. We'll go back on board with Gary Tall as they make their way back up the hill. Cars bouncing and dancing all over the curbs on the left-hand side of the circuit, then on the curb on the right. And they'll probably... No, they do clip the curb on the left, but look, Gary Tall, unfortunately, just does not get the run up there that the other guys do. And Mark Johnson now is much closer to Rob Sharp. He looks down the inside a little bit, but no, nothing doing. Further down, Paul Goffin has got Steve Kershaw with him. These two have both lost 4 places from where they started on the grid. They started 10th and 11th in this race. One on the 5th row, one on the 6th row, and now they're still fighting with each other. But they're not going to be too chuffed with the fact they've lost places. Looks like Paul Goffin goes a little bit deep into the hairpin, but somehow keeps it together. And then gets a really good run on the exit as well, actually. God, he turned that one around. Fantastic stuff. James Cummings is still 3rd with Andy Hopley 4th, then Ed May in 5th position. So Ed is going to lose quite a few points to Simon Povey in the championship fight. If it stays like this, you get 50 points for a race win. And for 5th place, you get 25. You get half of that. Now, Rob Sharp has... Oh, no. Mark Johnson has... I think he's left the gas on. Mark Johnson suddenly pulls over at the side of the road. I hope he's okay. We've seen things like that before, and it be a real world... I don't want to say issue, but, you know, outside of the sim, something going on. Didn't see anything happen with the car or anything like that. He just... All of a sudden just... He gradually moved over to the right in a safe manner and then just stopped the car. I mean, fair enough for doing it safely for Mark, but unfortunately that looks like it's his race done. That's a real shame. He was on for some good points in this one. The boss man, as Fausto Pinto was asked about, he's still going. He's 17th at the moment, so he's gained a place with Mark jumping back to the pits. So Andy is on to currently collect, I believe, 4 championship points for 17th position. Yes, it would be. So far this season, his total is 8. So he's got another 50% of the points that he's already earned this season. So good stuff by the boss here at Sim Racing Magazine. He goes a little bit hot into the chicane, though. But he cracks on with it and carries on. You can see a bit of gold inside the sort of door frame of the McLaren there. Not noticed that actually before this season. Oh, I think he clipped the inside of the pit wall there. He's certainly running it to the limits, as here is a run to the limit, side by side, between Andy Hopley and James Cummings. Andy's really caught him quickly over the course of the last couple of laps, actually. Down the inside he goes, takes all the curb in the world, and Andy Hopley gets into 3rd position. James Cummings will not take that line down, though. He doesn't want to give up another podium spot. He's had a couple of podium finishes this season, and in the absence of a number of drivers on this grid, he wants one more. You can guarantee that James is going to fight. God, that made me jump. You can guarantee that James is going to fight this as hard as he can. It probably won't come through as loud on the broadcast as it did to me, but yeah, it's mighty loud in here. Let's see what he can do about this Aston in front then, because we know how strong the Aston can be over a long run. Ed May is 2.5 seconds behind this. He's having a bit of a lonely race now in 5th position. Battle still going on here. This Porsche trio, very colourful, beautiful trio, isn't it? 3 of the best liveries on the grid. Heinz Mayer, just ahead of Paul Goffin. Just ahead of, oh no, Stephen Kershaw. Paul Goffin goes off completely. Almost ends up at the edge of the Nordschleife. serves what will probably be an almighty slowdown penalty. Rejoins. Oh, Ryan Penny probably won't have enjoyed that very much. There was the tiniest of taps. But I think Paul just unfortunately got caught out on the brakes. I think he was trying to just squeeze up on the right-hand side. I mean, there was no overlap or anything, so he couldn't sort of force the issue. I think Hines got a slowdown penalty, and that's what he's going slowly for there. Steve Kershaw goes through. Let's have a look at it from Steve Kershaw's perspective. So you see them both go over to the right. And, there's the tap. And, yeah, they both go straight on. So Steve says, right, thank you very much, boys. Nice tidy chicane. And there is Heinz Mayer coming back on. And that was the situation dealt with. Real shame to see the contact, though, unfortunately. But maybe just a slight misjudgment there from Paul Goffin. He's not had the best of races today. He had an absolute barnstormer at Hockenheim last time out. I think he got one of his best results of the season, if not his best result of the season, actually. Before that, I think it was in 11th place finish was his best, and he finished in 8th. But now he's unfortunately fallen back down to 14th position. Simon Povey continues to just extend his lead lap after lap here. It's 12.8 seconds now over Dominic Brennan. It's incredibly impressive. Simon's consistency at the front of the field has been second to none. But we've spoken to Ed May before about this championship fight, and he is well up for it. But he has said as well that as long as he comes home in the top 3 in the championship and he gets a bottle of bubbly, which is one of the prizes on offer, then he will be more than happy. There are medals and certificates given out to the drivers as well. The top 3 get them, and also a driver of the day and the safest driver award as well, the driver with the least amount of incident points. But for the season as well, they will get, I believe, I think it's a small trophy actually, as well as a bottle of champagne sent out by the wonderful Crockery Direct. We're very grateful to have them on board as a partner, and they've been awesome in supporting the series and providing these prizes. James Cummings has got back in front of Andy Hopley here. They've had some good battling going on by the look of it. Let's see what happened here. This is across the line. Oh, I think Andy's just had a slowdown penalty. Back up the hill then, through the Schumacher S's. Into the left. There's his Michelin curve, then Vorsteiner curve, down towards the Advanbogen, which is one of my favourite corner names in the world. Obviously part of the tyre brand Advan. I believe Advan part of Yokohama as well. I think it's Yokohama Advan or Advan Yokohama. I can't remember which way around it is. Pretty sure it's a similar brand as... Whoa, look how much curb Andy Hopley takes in the Aston Martin. I wouldn't be surprised to see some pit stops soon. And yes, look in the background, Ed May. Oh, I think he... second guess there. I think he thought Andy was going to fake it and then come in, but no. It seems not. Across the line then. Going on to lap 22 of this race here at the Nurburgring. 45 minutes done so far, and Andy Hopley goes back down the inside of James Cummings and takes 3rd position. But does James get a good enough cutback on the exit? No. No, he does not. We've got a trio of drivers that all started together on the grid, by the way, that have made their way forward. Oliver Carwadine, John Roberts and Philip Hopley. They've all gained 3 places each. So they started 12th, 13th and 14th, and they've all done a respectively good job to get up to the positions they currently find themselves in. And something worth noting as well for the eagle-eyed of you out there, you'll see on the McLaren we have the Sim Racing Magazine number boards and windscreen banner with the number 80 in black inside a white number board. But if we then look at one of the Porsches, you'll see it's a black number board with white numbers on the side of the car. iRacing have given that sort of number styling option to the McLaren that we see here. So from next season onwards, if there is a next season, there will be white numbers on the McLaren and they will have the same number boards. We're also excited to announce that if we do have a second season, we will be including the Mercedes AMG GT4 for people to be able to drive as another car option on the grid. So 5 cars will be made available, and it'd be great to have that many manufacturers on the grid as well. And it's one series where we've sort of considered a manual balance of performance as well. It's often the case that with iRacing, the newest car is the fastest, and I mean, this Aston Martin has been absolutely unbelievable for some of these drivers at the front of the pack especially. There's been a lot of drivers racing the Porsche because most of the drivers here come from Porsche Club GB. And the whole Sim Racing magazine bunch have sort of all come together from Porsche Club GB as well. So a lot of them obviously wanting to race their favourite brand rather than going for what is pretty clearly the most competitive car, which is the Aston. This is Rob Sharp, who's just been overtaken by Gary Toll. We'll have another look back at how that move happened. Oh, Rob just makes a little mistake out of the right-hander at Vorsteiner. And Gary has an easy pickings drive past him. Ed May's come into the pits. Ed May, the only car to pit on this lap, has a splash and dash for 8.3 seconds and then gets back on with it. He's not got long to stay out there. Now, Oliver Carwadine's going to come through. Is there going to be a move from Ollie? Is he able to sort of slightly hold Ed up? No, he's gone way too deep into turn 1. And Ed will be happy to see that car behind him on the exit of that corner for sure. Victor Oliveira in the chat says, "Hi Chaz, great broadcast friend. Thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated as ever." Some of you will be happy to know that there's another Gran Turismo 2 playthrough video coming out tomorrow as well, so keep your eyes out for that one. I also did my first video from iRacing for quite a while, actually, the other day, where I raced in a TCR car with my newly formed sort of team for fun, Spontex CDM Esports. And it didn't go well at all. Anyway, Andy Hopley currently in third position, having to work very hard here, and you can see James Cummings is working hard as well, really throwing that little Porsche around to try and gain whatever time he can. Let's have a look what Simon Povey is doing. He's not coming into the pits this time round. He continues on in the race lead. What about Dominic Brennan? He's been very much on his own in second place for a lot of this race, but it's good championship points for him, while a number of the people around him are not here tonight. Drivers in front of Dominic in the championship are Mattis Niger, Dan Bathy and Mark Baxter-Jones. All three of them are not here this evening. He's got Byron Crawford behind him as well, so he's in a bit of no man's land, but it's going to be good for championship points for him. Fausto Pinto saying we must have a season 2, 3 and 4 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Well, in time, my friend, in time, we will see. This is the onboard shot from Ryan Penny. He's got Paul Goffin and Heinz Mayer right in front of him. A trio of Porsches all scrapping together in the beautiful lowering sunshine here at the Nurburgring. Listen to that. Just listen to that. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Sounds absolutely wonderful. As they make their way up the revs and then hard onto the brakes into the chicane. Oliver Carwadine in the pits. Oh, that McLaren looks good there, doesn't it? Oh, if that doesn't do things to you. If that doesn't do things to you. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, Oliver. Love it. Right, Philip Hopley has just gone through and he overtakes him, but we've got a number of cars that are yet to do their second stops, and I've done that thing again, haven't I? Bear with it. Woohee! So, only 3 cars have done 2 stops so far. Andy Marston has just completed his on the previous lap. He's done an 8.9 second stop, so he knows exactly how long he needed to be stationary for. It's a similar amount of time to Ed May in terms of how stationary they were. Oliver Carwadine was stationary for 11.4 seconds though, so he might have put maybe a little bit too much fuel in. Maybe expecting an extra lap, because at a 2-minute lap round here, it's easy to underfuel it by that just 1 lap that the leader could do. In addition, we've got 9 minutes of the race left to go, and there's a lot of cars that are still yet to pit for a second time. So I'm expecting to see them all come in very, very shortly. And the first man to lead them round and obviously come in should be Simon Povey. We've got a lot of cars crossing the line still. People making their way into the last couple of corners. This is Stuart Clark in 7th place. He's a few seconds ahead of Ed May at the moment, obviously due to the pit stops. Rob Sharp has come in. And we've got John Roberts quite a bit further back from Ed. Seems like there's a few more here that have just managed to run a longer stint as well. John Roberts goes way too deep into the chicane, but carries on, doesn't pit on this lap. What about this little troublesome trio of Heinz Mayer, Paul Goffin and Ryan Penny? The three of them all together once again. Paul Goffin looks down the inside a lot more convincingly this time. Late on the brakes, gets it done. Heinz Mayer tries to go with him. Is he going to hold himself and Ryan Penny up? Ryan gives plenty of room on the exit. I think none of them coming into the pits this time round. Stephen Kershaw has come in, though, in the Martini-branded Porsche. And Paul Goffin will now try and break away from the two behind us. Whoa, Heinz Mayer, maybe I think looking at either his fuel calculations or something there on his screen and having a bit of a moment. They go hard onto the brakes, and Ryan Penny goes later on the brakes. Lovely stuff. Big send down the inside. And that is a nice manoeuvre by Mr. Penny. We've seen him do that a few times tonight, actually. He's gone nice and late on the brakes and managed to get it stopped. I want to know what brake pedal he's got. Or what pedals in general. Is Simon Povey in? Yes, he is. Simon comes into the pits then. Manages to dance the car on the pit entrance, and look at that, nicely slowed down for the yellow cones. It's easy to get done for speeding on a circuit like this where you've got a long, fast run up to the pit lane entrance. Looked to me like Andy Hopley stayed out there, and he has. Andy Hopley stays out to do another lap. He's caught up to Dominic Brennan quite a lot in the last few laps as well, so Andy's doing a great job here. He's certainly been performing well. Sorry, I've just adjusted my microphone because I realised it was a long way away from my mouth. Simon Povey already back out the pits, though. That's how much of an advantage he had. 9.4 seconds is his pit stop time, and considering how much later it was than Ed May, that's actually quite interesting to see. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just took a moment there to read. I wanted to just check the Discord and see if Mark Johnson had basically put a reason as to why he'd pulled over at one side. And, you know, we said earlier that real life comes first. Oh, no, Ed May's back in the pits again. I think Ed May's had a drive-through penalty, maybe for speeding in the pits. He's gone straight through. Oh, that's absolutely gutting for Ed. And, oh, he's pulled over. What's happened? No, not a retirement for Ed May, surely. Something's gone wrong there. He gets back underway again. I realise that we just lost a lot of frames, and I'm sorry. But Ed pulled over to the side of the road and then got going again. He's lost only one place in all of that to Rob Sharp, but something clearly went wrong for Ed May there. Oh, that's gutting. Absolutely gutting, especially if it's something out of his control. But what I was saying about real life coming first, with Mark Johnson mentioning the reason for his car suddenly pulling over, it was nothing to do with like a screen freeze or the rig or anything medical or anything like that. So good news is he's okay. But he's literally, in his words, this is what it says. He's put, oh man, after all that great close racing in the top 10, my flipping wife had ordered a Tesco delivery and I was summoned to cart it all in. So goodbye to a good finish near the end. Mark, I feel your pain, my friend, and I'm so sorry. It's entertaining, but I'm really sorry, mate. I mean, it's not my fault, but still. But like I said, everybody, real life comes first. And we will always go by that mantra. We will always go by it. No matter in what capacity, real life comes first. And we hope to see you next time out, Mark. And at the end of the day, it was good to see that the pace was there and having some good fights in the top 10. So it's a silver lining for you, mate. Silver lining. Right then, Dominic Brennan going past a number of cars as they're on their way out the pits. James Cummings is ahead of Andy Hopley. Andy seemingly staying on the pit limiter for just a moment there. And he's now hard onto the brakes into turn 1. Now, I was expecting Gary Tall to have a bit of a shorter stop than everybody else, or a longer stint, but no. Doesn't look like he's had that much a shorter stop at all, actually. He's a few tenths of a second longer than some of the cars around him. Well, that sounded good. Stuart Clark getting going. I love the Rusty's Roast livery on Stuart's car, the number 996 machine. With the flames and the metallic red wheels, it just looks so cool. Ed May's in the pits again. What has happened? We'll have a look on board. Is that a drive-through penalty or like a stop and go? Something at the end of this race is completely dematerialised for Ed May, unfortunately. Philip Hopley is on his way back out of the pits. He's hoping to get a top 10 from this, and he will do if he actually gets ahead of Ed May here. And he has done, although Steve Kershaw's just gone through and taken that back off him, so Philip's going to have to work hard to try and get that back. We'll have a look at the pit stops on the left-hand side of your screen. Everybody now doing 2 stops except Ed May, who's done 3. So there's Steve, and there is Philip. And John Roberts is 13 seconds up the road from this. So Philip needs to get past Steve Kershaw or hope that something happens to the cars ahead. Oliver Carwadine, John Roberts and Ryan Penny are tied as the biggest movers in the field so far. Simon Povey starts another lap with a 2:05.3, so he's still on the pace, which is amazing to see after nearly an hour of racing, and these guys don't change tyres in their pit stops either. Simon has been supreme once again this evening. Ed May has got back out on track, which is good. Not a clue what happened to the car. We'll go on board and have a look for a second and just see if there's anything up, but seems fine. Not quite sure what's gone on there. He's in 4th gear, so I'm not sure if he's had some sort of issue changing down a gear or something. No, he's back down to 3rd gear, so it all seems okay. I'm sure we'll find out at some point from Ed what the issue was, but it's a real shame to see it, because we obviously want to see this championship fight go on and on without being disturbed by any sort of technical issues or any other sort of outside input. I mean, Ed had an amazing middle part to the season. I think he had a run from finishing, I think, 4th in the first race of the season, I think he was. Yeah, 4th, he got 30 points. Since then, except one round, he's been either 1st or 2nd. He was 2nd, then he got 3 wins in a row, then 2 second places in a row, but a non-score at the Hockenheimring after the contact with him and Simon, unfortunately, took him out of the race. Although, actually, no, it took him further down the race order. And then he had an issue. Oh no, James Cummings has had an issue. Speaking of them, that looks like up the Schumacher S's, isn't it? Andy Hopley went past him. Oh wow, he's properly lost it. And whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, it's a known fact on iRacing that when you do hold the brakes, the cars don't really stop rolling backwards very well. And you can see he let go of the brakes there to try and let the car roll out of the way. But he's unfortunately dropped out of a podium spot, and Andy Hopley has got back into it. Dominic Brennan's still going well in 2nd place, by the way. He's just coming on to what will be the final lap of this race now. Simon Povey will make it 29 laps of the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. And it's been a very impressive 29 laps, hasn't it? Now, Philip Hopley is ahead of Paul Goffin here, but he's just not inside the top 10. The car literally just there. Stephen Kershaw is a top 10 finishing position, but Philip so far this season has scored himself 7 championship points. You basically... Actually, no, sorry. Yeah, he shouldn't drop any points at all, actually. He's dropped 3 points for some reason, but he's got 10 championship points this season. There's Philip Hopley. And this finish, which will put him in 11th, will get him 12 championship points. So he's going to more than double his tally if he stays where he is. It's been great to see him getting involved. You can see it's getting much, much darker here now at the Nürburgring. But it's not quite as dark as the livery on Simon Povey's very stealth-like, but also dazzle camo-like Aston Martin from Tall and Taller Motorsport. He's only got a couple more corners to go, and he's going to take what will be his 4th race win in a row. It's been a hell of a comeback from the mid-season dominance of Ed May. Simon has really turned it around. It's going to be his 5th win of the season and his 4th win in a row. It's been absolutely awesome to watch by Simon Povey, and I hope you'll join me in putting your hands together, everybody. Leading almost every lap of the race, including the pit stops, Simon Povey takes win number 4 on the trot at the Nurburgring and extends his championship advantage in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Beautiful stuff for Tall and Taller Motorsport as well in the team standings. Dominic Brennan, great return to form in the championship. Crosses the line, 2nd place after starting 5th on the grid. Cracked through some of the tough nuts at the front of the field and pulls off a really, really strong drive. Andy Hopley takes home a podium as well. He's going to be absolutely over the moon with that one, I'm sure. Seemed like the car might have even just run out of fuel right at the end of that one there for Andy Hopley. Next up was James Cummings in 4th position. He'll be a bit gutted about losing the podium near the end. And Gary Tall gets the top 5 as well. That's good for Tall and Taller Motorsport. He'll be really pleased with that. Rob Sharp is next up. He gets the 6th position ahead of Stuart Clark, who finishes pretty much on his own a bit further down. That is Andy Hopley's 2nd podium of the season, by the way. I've just been trying to find that statistic for quite a while. That's his 2nd podium of the season. He finished 2nd earlier on. Oliver Carwadine finishes 8th. John Roberts is going to finish in 9th position in the booted Motorsport Aston Martin. The beefy old thing. Started 13th on the grid as well, so John does a good job to break into the top 10. Gives us a flash of the lights to go with it. Thank you very much, John. And then next up, just finishing inside the top 10, is going to be Stephen Kershaw. He started 11th. He's only gained 1 place to get there, but still, a top 10 is a top 10. And can we have a hand for Philip Hopley, please? What a great drive for Philip. Finishing 11th, that's his best result of the season. More than doubling his points tally up to this point. That's great stuff by Philip. Very well done, my friend. Very well done. So, let's have a look at our race winner, shall we? Because Simon Povey takes, like I've said, his 4th victory on the trot. That will go down very, very well indeed, especially with his teammate Gary Tall at Tall and Taller Motorsport. It was another very entertaining race, despite having a much reduced grid compared to what we usually have. Thank you very, very much to all of you for your kind words. Fausto Pinto as well. Thank you very much, mate. Glad you enjoyed the show. Look forward to seeing you back out there on track. And it's just about time that we wait and see whether we can get anybody in for an interview. I'll tell you what, actually, before we do that, we'll head to the beautiful pit lane camera and we'll give you the race result when it is actually completed. I think we still have a few drivers about to cross the line, you know. Sorry. I'll have a look. Yes, Ryan Penny just about to cross the line. And then Ralph Mayer is not going to be too far behind him, although I think Ralph actually got lapped at the line, so I think he's come in, and yes, the result has now been confirmed. So we will go over said results. Simon Povey takes the win then by nearly 16 seconds from Dominic Brennan. A really, really strong performance, with Andrew Hopley rounding out your podium. James Cummings gets more strong points in 4th position ahead of Gary Tall with a good 5th place. Then it's Rob Sharp in 6th, Stuart Clark in 7th, ahead of Oliver Carwadine in 8th. He's the highest placed McLaren as well. John Roberts 9th ahead of Stephen Kershaw, who rounds out our top 10. And then it's Philip Hopley in 11th. Paul Goffin was 12th. Ed May finishes 13th. He'll be ruining what might have been tonight as well. Heinz Mayer 14th ahead of Ryan Penny in 15th. Then we have Ralph Mayer in 16th, Andrew Marston 17th, and Mark Johnson, unfortunately, having to bring in the shopping and pull over at the end. So, now what? Now we wait and have see who we can have a chat with, and there is a certain gentleman in the waiting room, and I'm actually really glad to be able to finally have a chat with him, actually, because it's been quite a while, Andy Hopley, since we've had a proper chinwag in Discord, mate. How was your night? It looked like you didn't have too bad an evening, really. You were always amongst it.
Evening, Chaz. Always great to speak to you, mate. Thanks for having me. It depends, I guess, on how much I was on the broadcast as to how much I want to admit how my night went.
Yeah, I remember one bit where there was two cars that looked very similar to each other making a slight bit of contact in a chicane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must admit,
just netcode, I think. Just netcode.
Yeah, definitely. That's all it was, mate. I mean, you know, there's no other way, other possible explanation for that sort of thing. Not at all.
Yeah. it's a good job and it's not for real, huh?
Indeed, mate. Indeed. Well, what did you make of the car track combo? Because this is a track that it makes any car feel horrible, if you ask me. It's an understeer nightmare, isn't it?
It can be, especially in the Aston, plough nose Aston. I'm not a massive fan of Nurburgring, but I do go quite well around here. Obviously not as well as Povey. That was ridiculous what he did in qualifying. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the modern circuit, to be honest with you, but I do tend to go quite well around here.
Yeah, you and me both when it comes to the Mercedes arena. I hate that bit, but the rest of it, I still think it's still obviously the classic Grand Prix circuit that it once was. So I think I've got maybe a slight hint of some rose-tinted glasses still on my face from watching Formula 1 in the 90s. But
yeah, is there a difference with the chicane on this circuit compared to what we normally run at? It seems like the chicane that we use is the tight one.
Yes, so this is the full Grand Prix one. The one that people normally run is the one used for what was, when it was named the Blancpain Endurance Series and the World Endurance Championship. The BESWEC chicane, apparently. It's a bit quicker and a lot more flowing, but...
So I think the Porsches were really struggling through there tonight because we were able to absolutely smash over those curbs, and
yeah, that's
where I was catching Cummins and Brennan in that last half of the race. I was just taking maybe half a second at a time just through the chicane. So I think Cummins realised that and just sort of let me go and decided to follow me to see if we could catch Brennan. I think that was the idea, but yeah, absolutely stuffed up the second pit stop and the pit exit, and then unfortunately Cummins spun, so ended up getting on the podium anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's in the end, got you a top 3 finish. It's a shame to see it separated like that, but at the end of the day, that's racing sometimes, and if you can benefit from those scenarios, then why not?
Sorry, go
on,
Chaz.
No, after you, mate, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think at the start of the championship, when me and Ed kind of realised, hang on a minute, we've got some pace here, and then Ed starts to lead the championship, you kind of find yourself putting 4 hours of practice in a week. And then on the flip side now, it's like, yeah, it's just a hobby.
Well, it goes that way sometimes. But, it's a fun championship, and I'm sure a lot of people have been really enjoying themselves. Oliver Carwadine has just put a hell of a meme in the chat saying it was the most lonely race in his history of the championship, and the McLaren was really slow to fill up at the pit stops. We go to Italy for the next 2 rounds, Imola then Monza before we head to Spain. Are either of those a sort of favourite of yours, or circuits you particularly like?
Yeah, I tend to go well at Imola and Monza, and I love them both, so fingers crossed, mate.
Well,
we've got a bit of pace.
I'll have my fingers crossed for you as well, Andy. Anyone you want to give a quick shout out to before I let you go?
No, just Ed and my dad. Big shout out to my dad. My dad's put in a load of effort over the past 9 months helping me build an extension onto the house. So yeah, big shout out to my dad for that. Appreciate it.
Fair play, and he's put a lot of effort in tonight as well. Nearly got a top 10 in the end of the race, so he's had an absolute belter, bless him. But we look forward to seeing you next time round, mate. Thank you very much for joining me, and yeah, we'll see you again soon.
See you now.
Lovely stuff then. Andy Hopley, good friend of mine as well. We've been sort of communicating for quite a while, of Andy and I. We worked together on a few things in the past as well. But, of course, that brings us to the end of our racing evening, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, and, well, Simon Povey does it again. He extends his championship lead, and in 2 weeks' time we will go to the beautiful Autodromo Enzo Idino Ferrari, which we all know as Imola. As for now, though, everyone, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good one.
Opportunistic, still rubbing panels as they go together. It's folded the wing mirror in on Gerardo's car.
Misano is such a difficult circuit for these guys to get right. There's a lot of start-stop sections around the back. It's a very, very quick section as well.
It's a fantastic start from the 23. They're 4 wide there by the look of it.